and welcome to our webcast today, Workforce of the Future, Employee Ownership and Choice in a New World. Thank you for joining the audience, for having and being with us. If you just joined, then just put in the chat, hi, say where you're from. It's an interactive session, it's a live session, so feel free to ask any question during the chat, and you can post it and we will add it and answer it during the end session, the Q&A session. Special thanks to Cisco. Cisco sponsors this webcast. It's in partnership with Cisco. But first, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Helen Tupper. She's the co-founder and the CEO at Amazing If. Gordon Thomson, he's the VP Technologies EMEA at Cisco. And Malene Rydahl, she's the best-selling author. She's a speaker, she's an executive coach. And I'm Ronald van Loon. I'm the principal analyst and CEO of the Intelligent World, and I will be your host today. All three, a warm welcome and thank you for being here on this exciting webcast today. Maybe you can all three introduce yourself shortly and explain how you are related to our theme today, Workforce of the Future. Helen, maybe you can kick off.
Absolutely. So delighted to be part of today's discussion. So I spend my days helping people with their careers, very specifically helping people with their squiggly careers. And we're really passionate at my company, Amazing If, about democratizing career development. So helping everybody to succeed in a squiggly career, whatever stage, whatever place they are at in their career. And technology plays a huge part in enabling that to happen. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about that in the discussion today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Malene, can you give a short introduction and how you're related to the topic?
Yes, thank you for joining us. My name is Malene Rydahl, and I am specialized in well-being and performance, and I teach in several business schools in France at the political science school, Sciences Po Paris as well, this topic. Inspired a little bit by the Danish model. I'm from Denmark, and Denmark comes out often as one of the happiest countries in the world. And this model based on trust, the freedom to be yourself, to feel safe in a group, that you can actually ask a question or participate on equal terms, and also having a common project that you know what the purpose is of what you do. So those are some of the topics I focus on. And of course, in these times, technology is extremely important. And in the situation we're in right now, everyone has been forced, if they hadn't gotten there yet, at least to try out the remote work. So I focus a lot on the combination of well-being and performance, and these days on technology.
Yeah, we're looking forward to your views as well. Last but not least, Gordon, how are you related to this topic, Workforce of the Future?
Yeah, thank you, Ronald. Delighted to be part of the panel, joining everyone today. So I'm responsible for technology acceleration for Cisco in our EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Russia. My main task isn't just to have customers deploy our technology, it's to use our technology in a way that will accelerate the business benefit for our customers. So, I look forward to spending time with you and the panel and the broader audience today, talking about how customers and how employees can get better benefits out of the use of technology.
Yeah, and I'm really honored to have you all three on the panel today. We have insights and experience from all different kind of angles. Before we dive into the topic, let me give a short introduction. We will discuss today the future of the workforce, and everybody is aware that workforce models have drastically changed in the past year due to this COVID-19, unfortunately. And organizations have to transform digitally quickly if they want to keep up. And even after the pandemic, I think the future of work will remain in part remotely or in some kind of hybrid workforce model. So organizations need to prepare and they need to adapt to this new normal, and even build maybe a new culture and have to develop new type of processes. But also business leaders have to see new types of roles and new type of responsibilities in guiding and shaping their business and shaping their new type of workforce. Employees need to have a new type of remote work environment. They need to have new tools, new systems. So that's all kind of a challenge. And to gain a better understanding of how organizations and workers are coping with this global pandemic, Cisco has surveyed more than 10,000 office-based employees in more than 12 countries across Europe, but also in the Middle East and Asia. And this is last August. So this is a very recent report. And this report, Workforce of the Future Survey 2020, has been launched today. So it's available for everybody, and probably it will be in the chat soon. And let me share some insights and some highlights. One of the highlights, I think, is that only 5% of the people that have been surveyed worked from home most of the time before the lockdown, which is just a tiny bit. If we look to, let's say, the people now, 87% want greater ownership of defining how and when they use the office space, and they are in favor of some kind of hybrid blend model with office and remote work, which is remarkable if we see this change. So a hybrid workforce model can help organizations to better prepare for this new normal, and also then for the new future, because this normal will stay the new normal. And business leaders, they are seeing a great deal of benefits from it. That's coming out of this report. And also we see what the survey says, most workers, they are preferring some kind of hybrid model. But I can tell a lot, but let's go to our expert, and we can learn about the changes that can make a lasting impact, how organizations operate and how workers experience their new type of job roles. So let's dive into it. So the change last month has substantially impacted both the individuals, but also the organizations. And organizations have to switch to this flexible hybrid workforce model. But what do we see as the greatest challenges? And I would like to have some different views from you, from your perspective. Gordon, technology is a foundation for change. Multiple years of digital transformation we've seen now executed in just a few months. What kind of technology hurdles have you seen the last couple of months?
Yeah, well, I think the first hurdle was, how do we get people connected? You know, the connection that people had in the office had to be very similar to the connection they had at home. And as you heard earlier on, only 5% of people were operating from home in the past. You know, we moved to a world where virtually 100% of people were operating from home. So the first thing we had to think about rapidly was, how do we get people connected? The vast majority of organizations did a good job around that tactical requirement of getting people connected. The reality is the hard job starts then, because at that point, you really have to think about how you drive, the cultural evolution for your organization. Using technology to connect is only one part of the solution. You then have to motivate and inspire people through culture as they work from home. And from that, you then need to be able to get people to be productive and to be innovative in terms of the way they operate. So most organizations now are going through the challenge of, okay, we got people connected. That's great. You know, we can sustain what we do. But now we're in a phase where we need to think about much more about how we evolve from that phase of connecting, and think about how we use technology in a different way as we move forward. At the heart of this, technology was always evolving this way. We expected, as we moved into this decade, for us to see this evolution and this change as we went through the decade. But what's happened with the pandemic is it's really moved things and accelerated the evolution of organizations far more quickly than we thought it would. And the use of technology is here. The challenge, I think, is also many of the people who are using the technology haven't been trained effectively on it, need more help and support through tools and training to be able to collaborate effectively, to communicate effectively. So there is a significant onus on every organization now, Ronald, not just to think about providing connectivity. They now really need to be thinking about culture. They need to be thinking about collaboration, and they need to be thinking about communication if they're going to be effective in this new operating model that we're all living in.
And if we talk about culture, Helen, you are the expert, the human aspect, the cultural aspect. It's very important. According to McKinsey, culture is one of the most significant barriers to digital effectiveness. What can you say about what are the challenges from a culture perspective, from a human perspective?
Yeah, I think if we think about the individuals that are now working from home and the things that they are juggling with, which might be very different to what they were trying to juggle with at home and work 9 months ago. There's a quote that I came across earlier this year, and it said, "We're all in the same storm, but we are not all in the same boat." And it really resonated with me, because we can't fix a working environment that fits everybody. We can't fix a state of flexibility. That just doesn't work. Everybody needs to work in a way that works for them. And I think that makes it a much bigger challenge for organizations, because they can't mandate a day in which we can all work in the same way. People need much more choice. They need much more freedom. They need much more support. And I think the other thing is, the other reason why we can't fix this one way to fit everybody is that it's still in flux. Everybody's individual circumstances are changing. It's changing all the time. And I think that makes it really challenging, both for the individuals who are experiencing this, that's their day-to-day reality, is that they're juggling, working, their home life, maybe parenting, everything that's going on, a constantly changing environment for them, and organizations who are trying to support their employees, but also they're having to respond really quickly. And I think it's definitely a hard time for both individuals and organizations. And there are quite a lot of things that we need to do. And I'm sure we're going to dive into some of those a bit more deeply, particularly from a sort of a leadership and management perspective. But I think one of the biggest things is that we can't create a one-size-fits-all solution to this. That's going to make a lot of people feel that their needs aren't being heard and listened to. What we need to do is create the freedom and flexibility for people to be work in a way that works for them right now, and know that today might look a bit different from tomorrow, and that's going to be okay.
Talking about boats have a captain, but every captain is different on every boat. So Malene, talking about your leadership experience, if we look to the captains and the leaders of the industry, do you have examples and from executives and from managers, what type of challenges they were facing, and how do they act to this?
Yeah, for sure, and I can only echo that it's not in the same boat. And one of the central topics that I've identified in this crisis or in this situation has been trust. And it's been like if a company had a low level of trust in the organization and the leadership, the remote working situation became a problem, because you need a high level of trust, and you need to be able to treat people like adults, and you also need this feeling of being able to express, especially in the situation, what the issues are, and according to what kind of generations that we're asking to do this, if they need training, or if they have some problems, even emotionally, the fact that they are at home and not seeing their colleagues physically also makes communication more difficult. And this is why in the ebook, I think it's so underlined by almost 80% of the people across almost all the countries that say, if I were the CEO of the company, I would really enhance or make the focus on the communication amongst the employees, because communicating becomes so much more important, because there can be created some kind of a distance between the people, because there's the screen between us, so you can't feel things. You can see them and you can see expressions of the face, but there is a form of distance that goes with the technology or the fact that we're remote working or in this period. So again, building a culture of trust where people are treated like adults. I had an example of one managing director who asked his executive committee to fill out an Excel spreadsheet hour by hour what they were doing when we went to lockdown in France. And the only result he obtained was to totally disengage his whole executive committee, that basically a few of the members are actively now looking to go somewhere else to work, because they felt that it was so disrespectful, lack of trust to ask them to fill out. It's so in conflict with the digital age we're living in, and all the benefits of it. So it's very central, and also again that people feel safe to and secure to actually also talk about issues they might have, even in the setup or at home, if they have some issues around the family situation or the private situation.
And especially these types of managers have the question, how should they manage this? So it's inevitable that we need to create a more flexible and digital workforce, and that we need to create this trust. So what are the best practices to optimize the connectivity, to optimize the safety of the people and the employees and the agility? Gordon, maybe you are the right person to ask for this. Can you share some examples how organizations manage their communication, their connection with the employees, on one hand in an agile way, but also to create this trust, what Malene was referring to?
Yeah, there was one comment in the study that said through COVID and through lockdown, the good news was we see a 39% improvement in trust in organizations. The bad news is we only saw a 39% improvement in trust in organizations. So there's work to be done, and technology has to play a part in that. Yes, it has to be driven culturally in organizations, but technology has to play a part. I think the first thing to say, and it's similar to what Helen said earlier on, is technology cannot deliver a one-size-fits-all model for the employees. The employees all have different, environments that they're operating in home, single parents, multiple children, etc., maybe poor broadband. And the organizations have to adjust the technology that they deliver for their employees based on individual needs and individual requirements. The second thing I would say about technology is technology cannot just be about connectivity moving forward. Technology is getting far more exciting. It's going way beyond connectivity now, and we're using data, we're monetizing and really understanding data through AI and ML that lets us really help the employee much more work in a productive manner. It may be we can use technology to understand the ambient heating, the ambient lighting in their environment and help adjust these things to make them more productive. It may be that when people operate in a hybrid environment and they spend some time at home and now some time back in the office, that we can make the office environment far more safer for them in their work environment. So, using technology to make sure that people socially distance, using technology in the buildings to make sure that we run very effective track and trace capabilities. So technology for me plays a big part here in kind of reimagining how organizations are going to operate, but it's only one part of it. It will fail if you approach it with a one-size-fits-all model. So therefore, all leaders, all organizations, all IT departments have to think really consciously about the personas, the types of people they have in their organization, and build differing solutions depending on the types of people they have. So I think that becomes the way that organizations move from the phase they're in just now, which is really responding to the crisis, into a phase of where they reimagine and their organization becomes something different and something better as we evolve through the crisis.
And I would like to dive a little bit more into the culture and the leadership aspect. So organizations need to change the culture, changing their work process, and maybe develop even new type of skills, all guided and initiated by the leaders in the organization. Malene, can you share some examples where best practices from leaders and leadership styles maybe within an organization who manage this change in a successful way in this hybrid workforce?
The main thing I've seen is definitely leaders that got in touch with their employees or the teams. So they would directly call them or do a digital meeting and ask them how they are. So it would be empathy. Empathy, I think, is a major ingredient in making some of this work, to actually put yourself in the place of the other person, what they're living through emotionally. And so if you're in a certain age group and your kids are already moved out, but put yourself in the place of somebody who's a single mom maybe and has the kids at home. So empathy has been one of the things that I've singled out as being what what they have in common, the companies sometimes that have had success. And then also, and we're also seeing this in the ebook, and I think this is really interesting because it also gave some clear benefits in terms of well-being. So people don't use time on transport. So all of a sudden we're seeing people doing more sports and doing things for themselves. So this is a benefit that's not directly linked to work, but as a mental well-being for the employees will always be good for the company, because the better people feel, the higher level of well-being they have, the more willing they will be to also adapt, and the less scared they will be. We're also seeing people that want to travel less. I think it was about 56% of the people in the report said that they got more exercise. And again, this is a positive thing. And some of the, I would say again, the companies that did really well had a good base of trust to begin with, and they also had a good level of empathy probably to begin with. So it's been like a little bit of a loop, when you it's been magnifying the dysfunctions in companies. So I see that the companies that have been really successful, they probably had a good base to start on.
I'm quite curious.
Based on those two.
Sorry, Helen, go ahead.
Sorry, I think that was Malene just finishing. Did you have a question?
But I'm quite curious about this empathy. How can you manage this? Because it's all digital. So Malene, maybe you can dive a little bit deeper into that. How do companies create that and generate that?
It's empathy. Basically, it's something we teach in Danish schools when children are small. It's sort of be able to identify your own emotions and understand those of others, and it's be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. But in order to do that, you need to know yourself. So it's a work of self-awareness and knowing where you come from. So if you know that you're living in a big house and you have your kids have moved out, or you have certain values in the way you navigate, that's your starting point, and you will always color the world by that starting point. So you have a filter in the way you look at the world. The more you're aware of how you behave yourself and your values, the more you're able to actually put yourself in somebody else's shoes without projecting what you do yourself. So actually creating understanding of what is that person's situation, what might their value sets be, and create some kind of understanding. One of the things that people disengage and disconnect is that they don't feel seen, understood, and accepted. And so if you're, for instance, from a generation that have had less digital in their upbringing, and all of a sudden you find yourself home, locked down, and you might be living alone, there might be a lot of things that are going on. And the fact that your leader calls in and say, how are you? Is there anything we can help with in the situation you're in currently? Feel free to talk about this situation, because it's important. So it's putting yourself really in other people's shoes. It's not being wanting people to talk about their psychological problems for 2 hours every day, but it's in a sober way to just ask, how are you? Are you okay? And if there are issues, you feel safe to talk about them. We can help.
Yeah, it's important now, but it's definitely important in the digital workforce as well. And Helen, we discussed already this cultural change is seen as one of the biggest barriers. How should organizations change their culture? Do you have some kind of tips?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So at the kind of leadership and manager level, we're dramatically shifting away from that, old model of command and control, which I think a lot of organizations realized didn't help people to be at their best. And instead of command and control, I think it's empower and enable. It's about giving people that permission. I think empowerment is about the trust. It is about the permission. It is about the freedom. And I think enabling is about making sure people have the tools to do their job in the way that they need to do it right now. And I think for me, in terms of the culture and enabling it, I think we really need to think about the spaces we create for people to think and do their work. And that's both quite a practical thing. So technology needs to create new spaces. We don't have the meeting rooms that we had before. We don't have the casual conversations by the desks, and technology needs to create some of those spaces because that's where culture thrives. And culture is, the way things are done around here, and we need to recreate here through our technology. But I also think space isn't just about where connection and collaboration, conversation happens. I think organizations need to also help their employees to have a bit of mental space. So back-to-back meetings on technology all day isn't giving people the mental space for them to think and reflect. I don't think, virtual presenteeism, where people might feel chained to their desk at home and on camera all day. Organizations need to really think about the culture they want to create. And that's not about just replicating it in technology. That's also about making sure that people have space to think outside of just kind of operating in technology all day. And it's a big responsibility right now. It's a huge, huge shift. And I think organizations can really help work to get better. They can definitely, creating virtual presenteeism and replacing face-to-face meetings with online meetings isn't the thing to do. We can actually relook at how we do work and relook at how managers empower and enable people to be their best at work too.
I think everybody recognized this being on screen all day right now. And talking about technology, Gordon, what kind of technologies can support as leaders to create a sustainable culture, to improve this productivity in this new workforce?
Yeah, I think it kind of breaks down into a few areas. First of all, we have to try our best to deliver secure, world-class connectivity to people wherever they are. Right? So we have to make sure we invest in the right technologies to make sure that people are getting secure and reliable connectivity no matter where they're operating from in their organization is the first thing. Secondly, there's going to be a much bigger reliance on collaboration technologies as we move forward. So being able to make sure we skill people up around those technologies, I think, is critical. And then thirdly, around the training and tools for these technologies, I think if we're going to ask people to be more reliant on the technology, we should invest in making sure these people can use the technology to the most effective way possible. And that comes back to some of the things you've heard Helen and Malene say as well around, don't ask your employees to go from one meeting to the next meeting. Set out processes in your organization that says, you should have a 10-minute or a 15-minute break between meetings. That meetings don't start at the top of the hour, they start at 5 past or 10 past the hour. These sorts of things, I think, help. Also bringing, we're a technology company, so we're very focused on using the technology, but we're very focused also on our people and the impact that this is having on our people. So there's a number of things that we're doing internally as a technology company. Number one, our CEO is meeting everybody in the organization once a week. We have weekly check-ins where everybody joins a Cisco WebEx, and Chuck, the CEO, will talk, or some of his leadership team will talk for 15 to 20 minutes to give people updates. And then there'll be 20, 40 minutes of Q&A that comes in that they will respond to authentically across the organization. These things really, I think, really help in terms of our ability to make sure we help people transition to be as effective as they can be in this new world, Ronald.
Yeah, I really like that you can, with small changes, you can really drive big impact. And especially what you said, having back-to-back online meetings, it's not always the best way to go, and the small changes can be very helpful. I think we can chat for a couple of more hours, but it's time to wrap up, unfortunately. If we look to the modern employees, what we see is that they want, I think, more ownership. They want to have more choice when it comes to how they work and where they work, especially. And if we look from an innovation perspective, this requires really the collaboration, and the people need to be connected. And if we want to build a sustainable and a flexible workforce, we will set organizations up for the future success. So the main goal, what we see with organizations in moving into the future, and what we see in the report, is make organizations more intelligent, empower employees, and make it able to work more flexible and more adaptable, and help employees to be productive, effective, but also give them some joy while being remotely at home. So I think if we can conclude, technology is a driving force for an intelligent future, but the leaders have to drive the change, and the people and the employees have to create this new workforce of the future and this new type of culture. Many thanks to Cisco for supporting this webcast, and thanks to our special guests, Helen, Gordon, and Malene. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for the audience, thank you for watching, and we see you next time.